Welcome back to Royas Bytes.
Hello.
We had an
And
episode
today
for
we're
last
talking
week,
about-
but it's delayed. Okay,
Yeah.
we want to talk about Linux, so I recently switched to Linux fully.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Initially, actually, when we first started the channel, I was full time on Linux, and I think you were too, weren't you?
when we first started the channel, no.
Yeah. Okay. I was, and then I dropped using Linux because of the channel. I wanted to record everything in Windows, where I figured most of our viewers would be,
Yeah.
and then I just was too lazy to boot into Linux all the time.
Yeah, that's the problem. I feel like Linux has to be a cold turkey switch. So
Yeah.
so I guess talk about why we switched to Linux, or I switched to Linux so far.
Yeah. I'm still
You're not
back on
far behind,
Windows.
I'm assuming. And our
No,
roommate,
not very
or my
well.
roommate, is also said he's not far behind. He's ordered an SSD for it and everything. So
Oh, really?
yeah.
Good for him.
So overall, I just don't like Windows 11.
Oh, Windows 11 was horrible. We use it at work, and
Oh,
it's awful.
That's what happened. Is one day I was using Windows 11 and it was bugging out. The search never worked. And
Yeah.
every time I opened an application, it decided it wanted to make a noise for some reason.
Oh, okay.
And I
That's
couldn't
weird.
turn it off. So I was so done with Linux.
Oh,
Or, sorry, with Windows 11.
Yeah, there's so many things that's I dislike about Windows 11. The performance is probably the number one thing. I just
Yes.
feel like every time I'm using Windows 11, it's walking through sand.
Well, it idles at 5 to 6 gigabytes. And I did another test
Yeah.
at work again. It still idles at 5 to 6 gigabytes, even if I close things that they just automatically open, like Microsoft Teams.
Yeah.
It was still
Oh, did
5
you-
to 6 gigabytes, so I'll go ahead.
I think they're actually killing Skype finally.
Yeah, they're killing
I-
Skype, but now they're just replacing it with Teams.
I know, but still, now it's not gonna auto open Skype and Teams.
Yeah, which is good.
Which that was such a stupid thing.
And
you
I
couldn't
guess
even turn it off like the auto start of Skype.
Yeah, you couldn't do that. But
Yeah.
I guess we could talk about the implications for game dev with switching to Linux.
Yeah. And Godot specifically.
Godot specifically. Let's not beat around the bush. Game engines usually suck on Linux.
Yes, Unity. I've used it on Linux before. It's horrible.
Unity on Linux was a nightmare. Unreal. Tim Sweeney has straight up said he doesn't want to do a Linux port.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't even hear that.
No, he has absolutely said Unreal will not go to Linux, and the Epic Game Store won't go to Linux.
Has he said a reason for why, or?
I think he just likes Windows, which fair.
Oh, yeah,
I guess. But I think that Microsoft's goodwill, I think, is fading. But you're going to be kind of backed into a corner of O3DE and Godot if you switch to Linux.
Yeah,
you can use Unity. Don't get me wrong; it is there.
And
it is
Panda. You're always forgetting Panda.
I'm always forgetting Panda 3D. Oh, the best game engine, Pirates of the Caribbean Online.
Yeah, how could you forget that one?
But yeah, like you're really limited in your options, and so one of the reasons I switched is I don't have a TPM 2.0 chip. Yes,
neither do
I. And I know you can get them and slot it into your motherboard. I just didn't want it. I had no use for it. I didn't want AI features. I didn't want better hard drive or encryption, which is what they use TPM 2.0 for. And basically, if they use TPM 2.0 for encryption, even you can't unencrypt it. You don't get to set the key. Microsoft does. And the US government.
Gets the key.
So
it's like, why would I want that? And it also, once again, slows down your computer.
Yeah, I
feel like everything Windows 11 does just slows down your
everything Windows 11 does is for Microsoft's benefit, not yours.
Oh, I gotta tell you this. I was on some C# docs the other day, reading multi-threading stuff, right?
Yeah.
And they were talking about all the things that you do, like for multi-threading, and it's like, oh, when you want to multi-thread, you on startup, if you know you're going to be using the threads, even if you're not using them right away, you'll want to start them at the start of the app because it takes a lot of performance to start up a thread. And they're like, specifically on Windows, it's a giant hit.
Yeah, specifically on Windows.
And this is C# docs.
Yes.
They were just like,
Microsoft
on
wrote
Windows,
them.
the performance is a lot worse when starting up a thread on Windows.
Yeah. But I still use Godot C# on Linux. I love C#. I think C# is the best thing Microsoft's ever made.
Oh, yes. I am very much in love with C#.
It works completely fine on Linux. To get Unity going with C# was a pain in the ass back in the day. It was annoying to get it going. Godot is so... And I have to give Microsoft credit here. They made it easier to install the .NET SDK.
Yeah.
But
well, and Visual Studio Code's gotten a lot easier. And that's
Visual
just kind
Studio
of what I
Code's
use.
gotten a lot better. And now with their just default C# plugin, it's a lot easier to set up.
Yeah. It's gotten so much better.
Godot, flawless. Not a single issue on Linux. Which is not what I can say for Windows, or not what I can say for Unity, sorry. But
yeah.
Literally there's not much to be desired. I wish they came with an icon for the release. And that's just like a nitpick. I could do it. I made a .desktop file.
Yeah. And now you say that there's an automatic like .desktop creator for Mint?
Yes. So Mint, you can just right-click the desktop and you can be like create launcher. And then it just creates a .desktop file and I am like, that was a godsend. Because I hated making .desktop files.
On Pop, I hated doing it so much. Now that I've got an AMD graphics card, I feel like I might just abandon Pop and go back to Mint.
Yeah.
When I switch again. I've still got Pop installed, but I'm just like, eh.
Yeah. It is... Okay, there's still a learning curve. I've used Linux for... Okay, at this point, we've used it somewhat for most of our lives. So we did install it way back in the day, or I did, or both of us did, with Wooby.
NimbleX.
NimbleX was our first Linux distro, and then I dual booted it with Wooby. Because that's what you had to do back in the day. Yeah, like, it's a lot easier. If you have a computer that Microsoft wants you to throw out, and they're very clear that they just want you to throw it out, they're not beating around the bush, throw out your computer, just install Linux. The performance is really good.
Even on most Windows apps.
Sorry?
Even on most Windows apps, you're going to get a performance increase using Wine or Proton or something like that.
There is a learning curve, though. For example, launching things with 3D now is something I had to learn to do. Because things just weren't launching... Yeah, so with OpenGL, things just weren't launching with my AMD GPU.
Oh.
And so I had to figure out how to do that. And specifically, Flatpak's bad for this.
Oh, Flatpak is...
I like Flatpak for everything else but that. Flatpak was a pain to... If you want things running well in Flatpak, I really struggled. Because...
I've heard that's a common thing, is people keep saying you get a major performance hit for just using Flatpak.
And it's because it's run in sandboxed. It's in a sandbox, so it doesn't have access to everything else. So you have to install Linux or drivers for Flatpak.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so I had to do that, and I was still getting massive performance hits for some things. Some things just don't work. I couldn't do an UTMM rando because the Ares emulator was just so bad.
No.
And they only support... I had to build their multi-client myself. That's another issue I found. Is that if you want to go off the beaten path, you're going to have to learn CMake. or somewhat how to
Oh,
CMake.
yeah.
And you're gonna have to
That's
compile all these things because Linux has so many flavors that these people don't
mhm.
want to have to compile it every time they do an
It's-
update.
that's very true. Especially like even if you want to automate it, that's a lot of compute.
That is a lot of compute and just a lot of time. And so, and oftentimes that's going to bring in more bug reports because people are going to say, "Oh, this isn't optimized for my weird Fedora
Yeah,
offshoot." And
exactly.
oh, they're like, just see, make it yourself. Just do that.
But at the same time, if that's only if you want to go off the beaten path. Whereas if you kind of stay in the ecosystem, because there's often stores now that just install things, you can kind of ignore terminal for the
Yeah,
most part. If it's like you want to do web browsing and basic dev, like when you install obviously like .NET and stuff for the first time for Godot and maybe Blender and GIMP's usually automatically installed,
yeah.
then you're kind of just good. And if that's all you want to do, you probably never actually have to touch terminal again as a game dev.
As a game dev,
And
yeah, no, there really isn't much you have to touch
yeah,
terminal for.
yeah, it's mostly doing like the weird stuff like Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask randomizers. Like that's not a normal use case,
No,
obviously.
no, that's not a normal use case. But if you stick to like Steam and Lutris for your gaming needs, and most
Mm-hmm.
people, that's all they use, and maybe Epic,
Yeah.
but Lutris also supports Epic, so
Yeah.
then you're fine.
Mm-hmm.
You're good to go for the most part, unless you want to do modding support. Then you're gonna have to dig up some weird guides, and it's Linux. If a guide's 2 years old, it's out of date.
Yeah. But I would say for the general like 98% of users, it's like you're probably at the point where they would never have to open terminal. It's just unfortunately everything in Linux tells you to go into terminal, even if you don't have to.
And I understand why is terminal is faster. It
Oh, it's
is.
faster.
If you know what you're doing something in terminal is way faster than doing it in the UI. And I think that's
Hmm.
what the Linux community gets hung up on.
Yes, is there like, but it's faster, and it's like, yes, but faster is not more user friendly.
It
Always.
yeah, it's faster, but most people don't want the faster.
Hmm. They want a nice, pretty icon to click, and that does everything for them. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No, there's really nothing wrong with that.
But also, like, a lot of people don't know what's automatically in these stores. As a web dev, like, a lot of people get used to stuff like Node or like the NPM store
Yeah.
or Yarn or something like that. And they'll kind of know automatically what's in those stores that they want.
Yeah.
Or not, but software distribution platforms. They'll know what's there.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like there's a lot of different like niche programs where it's like this one's in Flatpak, this one's in apt, this one's in
Snap.
Gnome. Yeah, Snap.
Yeah. It's
Not Gnome.
definitely
Yeah.
this one's just an app image, and
Mm-hmm.
app images are great. I think app images are if you and some app images can't put icons in. If you could just have like a folder with like programs and you just dump the app image in, I think that'd be the best case scenario. And then it just creates a desktop for you.
Yes.
I think
Kind of
yeah, go ahead.
like how Microsoft like automatically creates your start menu
Yeah.
thing, where there's just that checkbox when you're installing an app, like create start menu.
Yeah. Look, Microsoft just most programs handle it for you, whereas Linux
Yeah.
they don't. Well, many do. Even if you're making it from source, they do. But yeah, I don't know. It's
Yeah.
so. Do you think? So, what do you think the growth potential for Linux is? Because Linux has kind of been on a big exponential curve lately.
Yes, I
Where
think.
last year they were 4%, I think this year they might hit
Yeah,
5%
which
of the
is
desktop
massive,
market.
massive growth.
It's huge, but
I think more and more people are just thinking of it as their go-to. There was a guy I met last summer. who had never had like a desktop computer before. He'd gotten a Steam Deck and he was like, "Oh, I like these PC games. I kind of want to do more with this. I want to get a PC." And he was like, "So I'm installing Linux first." He's like, "I'm not even gonna bother with Windows."
Because
And that
that's
was
what
just kind of
I've used, right?
yeah, exactly. That's what he was familiar with. And I think the Steam Deck has been amazing for that, of just getting that to be the default in people's minds. Um, I actually was just talking with my brother-in-law yesterday,
Yeah.
and I've been trying to convince him to go Linux because he just got his first computer too. And it's got Windows 10. It can't upgrade to Windows 11. The performance on it's like it's it's a little older.
Yeah.
It's not a like gaming PC by any stretch of the imagination. It's fine, but I've been trying to be like, just let's install Mint. I'll get you set up. You can just use Steam, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. Specifically, if
And
it's your first computer and you're just going to Steam, it's perfect.
yeah,
Keep in the Linux ecosystem to start. Don't get
yeah,
used to
exactly.
Windows. I think that's the biggest curve, is people are just used to Windows because that's what they've used their whole life.
Exactly. Like you and I switching to Godot, there was like hangups because we were just used to Unity. It's like whatever
Exactly.
is the default in your mind is gonna like affect your
Well,
opinion
and
of
then you're gonna
switching.
have complaints because, oh, it worked this way in Unity, it worked this way in Windows, it should work this way in
Yeah, because
this other thing.
that's just how your brain works.
Yeah, it's how you learn to deal with these things, and we as humans are pretty. We don't like change.
Yes. Once we're used to something, we're used to it. But there's another thing I wanted to say about that. He talked to his friends who have PCs, right?
Yeah.
And guess what they told him?
Hmm.
They told him Linux is for non-American computers. I'd
What?
never ever heard that before.
What? What does that mean?
I I don't know. I'd never heard, but that's what they told them. They were like, "Oh yeah, we're PC guys. Linux is for non-American computers."
I don't know what that means.
I was like, "No, it's for everything. It's on the Steam
Okay,
Deck. Don't
I
worry."
guess we're Canadian. Um, I don't know what that means because
Ne-
a lot of people I know where we live, most techie people are now making the switch.
Yeah, well, because they're gonna like charge you for security updates for Windows 10. They're talking about dropping support for like the 365 suite on Windows 10, which that's a lot of businesses use the
They
365 suite.
extended it, but they phrased it as, "Oh, we did a big favor by extending
Yeah,
it by 2 years Windows 365 support." What?
ex- exactly. And like our office uses 365,
Yeah. And
but you can just use all the 365 apps on
a browser,
the
but
browser. You don't
you're
need the app.
you're not going to be able to make things like macros though in something like
Oh, that's
Excel because it uses
true.
VB6, and let me tell you, VB6 is never about to run in a web browser.
Maybe they'll make it. Maybe they'll make it run in a web browser.
I don't know if
I've
Microsoft's willing to look at this 30-year-old code at this point.
I've never actually tried to make a macro in the browser version. I just open up Libre Calc. I'm just like, I'll bypass the Microsoft ecosystem entirely
Yeah.
for work stuff. And
Well, in LibreCalc you can use Python, so it's
mhm,
better.
which is it's just nicer.
Uh so our roommate, he wants to switch to Linux, and that's his one hiccup at this point. Is he says I like using Excel for my spreadsheets. But he
That's
doesn't
a
use
big
macros.
he's just used to the workflow,
He's just
which
used to the
same
workflow,
thing.
and that's completely fair. But he says he's okay with switching, but he doesn't want to miss out on macros. So
Oh, but yeah, like that's usually the excuses I hear from people who know they should switch but like don't want to, is like, "Oh, I'm used to Photoshop." Photoshop's like a big one.
yes, and you can get old
Most
Photoshop versions on Linux. Like
True.
CS6 works on Linux.
If you want to be a pirate.
If you want to put on your eye patch and surf the seas a little bit.
Surf the web a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
GIMP, you can in the PewDiePie video, he downloaded the icon pack for Photoshop and put it into GIMP. I've seen people do straight up UI overhauls. Like you can download UIs that mirror Photoshop's UI one-to-one.
Yeah.
And there's obviously still the things of like Photoshop doesn't have non-destructive, or GIMP doesn't have non-destructive layers.
Yeah.
That I feel is probably the biggest thing when switching, is like the non-destructive layers they need to add. That night, from my understanding, it's in the like list of things to do.
GIMP I find GIMP really slow to update.
Yeah, they are.
They're not quick.
And they also, as far as I know, they don't have GPU support for image processing. So like if you're working on giant images, it can be a little bit slow.
It's always going to be a problem. But most people don't work on that is an edge case.
Yeah.
So like, okay.
But I could understand if someone's a graphics designer where they may get an order for an 8K, banner or something, they wouldn't want to do it.
Exactly. In GIMP. Obviously, if you're watching this, you can tell I'm not a graphics designer. This is something I threw together in like 3 minutes in GIMP.
Yeah.
But
yes. I'm very much a GIMP user.
I used to use Photoshop, and then I was like, I'm gonna switch to Linux one day, and so I switched to GIMP, and that was like 7 years ago. So now I've finally made the switch, and it's paid off.
Yeah, I had been like a hardcore GIMP user the whole time, and then I took one university class on Photoshop. I was like, Photoshop's fine. I like the non-destructive layers. That one was like, okay, that's really nice.
Yeah.
But then beyond that, like everything that I found nice in Photoshop that GIMP didn't have natively, I was able to find in like an app.
Yeah.
Or like an add-on. An add-on.
Yeah. And that's
so
just nice.
Just like,
but
yeah,
learning GIMP will be. I feel bad for the people who love Photoshop and are moving, because GIMP just isn't there.
No, it's just
good, but there's issues.
And if you can get it to the point of where it's like, it's mostly Photoshop, if you probably could get almost every feature you need except for the non-destructive layers
and the AI features. Those aren't handed out for free. They're expensive to run specifically.
Yeah.
So if you're using AI features, okay, I love the fact that there's so little AI for Linux, because it's not pushed onto me as much anymore.
That's another thing I hate about Windows 11 is AI's crammed into everything. It's just like,
and it's not for your benefit. Copilot sucks.
Oh, it's horrible.
I saw the freaking, what was that? The Windows rewind feature or something, and it looked terrible. I never wanted that.
Yeah.
Where it tracks everything you did, and okay.
Well, and how it's tracking your typing and then suggesting stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And like you and I type a lot for code, and all of the AI recommendations for code are like always wrong. Always.
Yeah. No, I always turn off in Visual Studio, but it's so nice to just you're free of it, because no one supports Linux, because Microsoft is not about to shell out, so you can run their AI for a loss for them on Linux.
Exactly.
And Adobe just won't support Linux, so
good.
I'm okay. Adobe sucks.
I hate Adobe so much.
It was okay. This switch was easier because even Royas Bytes, or Royas just in general, we always made sure that our whole production workflow was Linux friendly.
Well, one of the reasons you switched off of Photoshop years ago was that was our plan in general, was we were always going to switch to Linux at some point. That it was just like the timing.
Yeah, we're waiting for Linux to be good enough to switch. And
Yeah.
I love that it wasn't the companies or the devs who eventually said, fine, we'll support Linux. It was the other way around. It said, Linux said, fine, we're going to support you.
Yes. And that does kind of make sense, is Linux was a little bit too hard to use, and it still is very much. But I think for 99% of the people, almost everything's in the browser now. You can just open up Firefox or WaterFox for me now.
WaterFox.
And
Okay, hold up. What's
yeah.
WaterFox? You threw me a curveball. Now I need to know.
So Mozilla started doing a lot more tracking and stuff in Firefox, right?
Yeah.
And there's a fork of it that kind of like rips all that out and focuses on privacy. And I found what was that?
LibreWolf.
Yeah, LibreWolf. They limited the add-ons I could use. They had a select whitelist of add-ons that I could enable on it, and beyond that, they were just like, no, you can't use these because they're not verified by us.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's not really freedom. That's, And then I looked it up, and there was WaterFox, which is like the full control of Firefox and everything like that. But it's like it's got all the extra stuff that Mozilla's been putting into it ripped out. And they actually had a 60. The reason they made it initially was they wanted a 64-bit version of it before Firefox supported 64-bit.
Oh.
So it's been in development for years. Like they've had it for a long time. Because I remember us back in the day using the nightly builds of Firefox to get the 64-bit.
Yes. Oh, that was a long time ago.
That was
a
ago.
really long time ago that we did that.
And so WaterFox has been there this whole time.
Wow. And it's just better security. So what do you think? Have you heard of the Google and the FTC lawsuit right now? Is that they're going to lose access to Chrome?
Oh, good.
Like Chrome is being ripped away, but they're also not able to sponsor essentially searches. And so that's most of Firefox's revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's why Mozilla's freaking out right now.
Oh, they've got their fingers in so many different pies right now because they've got like their VPN.
Oh, I don't even think of VPNs most of the time.
Yeah, like Mozilla's got so many like different products. Well, and the Pocket thing of those articles that pop up when you start up Firefox.
Oh yeah,
that
those
disable instantly.
Yeah, I disable them.
I
too.
hate them.
They're so bad.
They're the worst.
It's like you would never guess this weird cooking technique. Okay. I guess.
Sometimes they have like an interesting title, and then it was just like a mile of text to explain something that could have been said in a paragraph.
Yeah.
It's like, this is a 45-minute read. And it could have been 30 seconds. That's all. You had me with the hook.
The title was everything, but yeah, I turned those off as well. So I'll give my Firefox credit there. They allow you to turn off the make money mode for them.
Yes. But WaterFox doesn't have any of that. I don't know how they make money. Okay, I should look into that, obviously. I think that's a good practice to get into, is understand.
Well, after the honey controversy, where no one knew how they made money, and then it turned out, they were doing referral codes and making sure you didn't get a great deal. Or something like that.
Well, and they were like doing referral sniping. So like they were automatically putting in their referral URL, even if you used someone else's.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I think it's probably a good idea. And then I just don't trust any Chromium browser.
Oh no. I trust Firefox much more than any Chromium browser on the market.
Yeah. I know a lot of people trust Brave, but Brave's also an advertising company at the end of the day, and they also do a lot of crypto stuff, so I'm just like...
If I was gonna get a Chromium browser, it'd probably be like DuckDuckGo or something.
No, you want Opera GX.
No.
That's your browser. That's your browser choice.
That's
Opera GX!
No. Really? How do they make money? I don't understand how they're sponsoring everyone.
Yeah.
I don't want. Wow, we're just turning down sponsorship.
We're pissing off all
We're
the
pissing off everyone. No one's gonna sponsor us now.
Not like we've ever gotten a sponsorship offer ever, so
Yeah, I don't know if that'll ever happen. But if it does, Opera GX knows we're not available.
yeah. What other sponsorship can we piss off? Hurry!
Raid Shadow Legends, no.
Yay, we did it.
Uh,
Loot Crate. No, they went under.
they're gone. I think. Hello Fresh.
Nope. Established titles. Screw you.
What is that? Oh, that was the scam one, right?
Yeah.
Like honey.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess this episode is basically done. We stopped talking about Linux a while ago.
Yeah, we just started talking about random stuff.
Kind of adjacent to Linux. Okay. Patrick, let's wrap this up. Should you switch to Linux?
I think now's probably a really, really, really good time if you want to. Linux has a lot going for it. I think there'll be a big switch to Linux when October comes. Also, Tate and I were discussing maybe doing
Linux
a
month.
Yeah, in October of like trying to do a video every day of teaching some like Linux concepts to help people get started. So like how to install Godot on Linux, how to install Visual Studio, how to set everything up, how to use terminal.
Yeah.
What are some basic terminal commands?
What's the
how to use
file system? That's
yeah,
a
what's
big
the file
one.
system? Like what's Flatpak? What's
the
apps?
difference between Flatpak, apt, and snapped or snap?
Yeah. And like teaching you how to use them and what they are, because I think a lot of people don't understand why they're typing in those commands when they first switch. They're just being told copy this code and put it in, and
yeah, because a lot of people would be like, why am I typing in nano in front of this file name? What does that mean?
Yeah.
And
yeah, what's nano?
What's nano?
Yeah, and we can teach all of that and explain it. And yeah, so that's something we were debating doing for the month of October.
Yes.
To celebrate
the death of Windows 10. What a weird celebration. Okay, I want as few computers as possible in the landfill.
Yes.
Honestly. I hate that Microsoft is... It is scary how upfront with that landfill thing they've been.
Mm-hmm. Well, and let's be perfectly honest, most computers now don't like age out.
No.
There's no good, like CPUs aren't improving fast enough on desktops to age out.
Like you could probably get away with replacing your CPU now once every 10 years.
Oh yeah, and
I'm still running an 8-year-old CPU now.
And it's totally okay.
Oh yeah, no, I've run into a couple things every once in a while where it's like, oh yeah, that struggles. Specifically AI stuff, it struggles.
Yeah, but that's more of a GPU thing too. If you just like, but even GPUs, it's like the amount of people who are still running 10 series NVIDIA cards.
I ran a 1050 up until 2 years ago, so a 1050 Ti, and here's the thing, I don't play a lot of new games, though.
That's true.
I just don't, so...
I still think most people could get away with just not landfilling their computer. And a 10-year-old computer doesn't need TPM 2.0.
No.
And so, yeah, I think a lot of
the Linux community is very against TPM 2.0 because, again, they don't like the idea of you don't own that encryption. At that point, none of your data is yours. It's all Microsoft.
You're trusting these giant corporations with your data, all of it, encrypted.
And with the AI training, they've already kind of proven that they're not really trustworthy.
I never used to be like a person who cared about
privacy and stuff.
Yeah. I was like, I've got nothing to hide. I'm fine. And these companies have made me a privacy person.
Which is funny because we used to say, I don't care. I just don't care.
You and I would go on rants about those people who got overly obsessive about privacy and being like, oh. But now it's like,
I
well,
just
you're
don't
taking
trust.
away all my performance on my computer to steal my privacy.
Stop.
What do I get out of this? Like, you're slowing down my machine that I paid for
Yeah.
to sell my data, and you're giving me a worse experience.
You're giving
Where do
me
I?
targeted ads.
Wow, thank you.
Thanks.
Targeted ads.
Thanks. I don't get to discover anything on the internet anymore. It's all recommended to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think Bluesky is such a step in the right direction for that.
Oh, so much better.
It's a lot better, the fact that it's not fully algorithm based. That is,
Mm-hmm.
it's really good. It's much better.
I think there's a decent sized movement of people being like, screw the algorithm, screw AI.
Screw Microsoft.
Yes,
Like
specifically.
DankPods, PewDiePie. I don't.
Yeah.
I watch some DankPods. I've never watched PewDiePie. That just kind of You sent me a link one day saying, "Dude, did you see this?" Like, no.
It just popped up. I was like, I've never watched PewDiePie. Why is this on my homepage? But I'm interested.
Because it
YouTube.
said Linux, and I
Yes,
watched Linux videos. So
exactly.
also, I did okay. One of the reasons I switched is I didn't want to be left behind because I feel like this is just the way the world's going.
Oh, yeah, I think in 10 years, it's like, it'll
Well, I
be
think in 10
easily a
years,
Linux
Linux is
world.
supposed to have over 10% market share.
Projected right
Projected,
now.
yeah.
And like, I think there'll be a massive reckoning with Windows 11, where they may go up to 7% or something.
Look,
'Cause
okay, Windows.
there's-
I'm so sad. Have you seen the graph? Windows 11 is starting to get up to the 10 levels now.
I
People are
hate that.
switching. It's actually sad. And it's just because you buy a new computer, it's on there. You're not gonna install a different
Mhm.
operating system.
Well,
How-
they're forcing people to.
Yeah. How
But-
do you get? My question is how do you get Linux machines in stores and on shops?
Oh,
How do you?
I
You
feel
can't
like
go to
Microsoft has
Newegg and buy a
monopolized
Linux
that.
computer.
There's a few,
There
but
are a
they're
few.
all very like niche brands.
Well, it's like System 76, which is the company that makes Pop. They make computers.
And I think Framework or something like that. Yeah, I feel like Microsoft has put a lot of money into keeping Linux out of stores.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think the Steam Deck's been the right direction.
Did you ever hear of the operating system Windows?
Yes, yeah,
Microsoft bought it to keep it off shelves.
exactly.
They sued them, lost it, and then bought them.
Well, and Microsoft, I think, has gotten in trouble for paying like Dell and stuff to only put Windows on their machines and not Linux.
Yeah.
So
Because
they've
Linux is good enough. It is. I would
Yeah.
love to see Linux in a Walmart or something. Or at a
Mhm.
Best Buy or on Amazon or Newegg.
I think there'll be a critical threshold of maybe 10% of computers or something where you'll start to see them just naturally show up in the stores where Microsoft won't be able to pay them enough because there's just that demand.
Yeah.
But most people don't buy computers in stores anymore.
No. It's just it's funny that it's growing. It's on an S curve even with the barrier for entry of installing a new operating system on your machine.
Yeah.
Could you imagine how much faster they'd grow if you could just double click something and be like, okay, installing Linux now on your computer.
Yeah.
Instead of having
an
to
installation is not simple.
instead of having to get a flash drive, put Ventoy or use Rufus or something, and then switch your BIOS settings and then install Linux.
Well, and then partitioning your drive to give like Linux space, or just overwriting everything.
Which is what I did for this one. I just said I'm done. So
yeah,
I'm not.
So then, if you're overwriting everything, you got to back it all up,
and
that's like a pain.
For me as a person, I don't have a lot of data that I care to back up because most of my projects are on like GitHub or something. I backed up some images, and that's about it. Some game saves. I don't want to lose my Sonic Adventure 2 Chow Garden, just saying.
That's a very important thing.
That's important to me.
Near
I
and dear
just
to my
lost a
heart.
lot of respect Just down, like the respect drop was tangible right there.
Well, on that note, should we call it?
Yeah, let's call it. Okay, have a good one,
Alright.
guys. Switch to Linux.
Thanks for watching. Yes, do it.
If you want to. If you don't, do what
Yeah,
you want.
if it works for you.
If it works for you. Have a good one, guys.
Bye.